Today's video is sponsored by Helix Sleep. Go to the info box below and check out the link at helixsleep.com/fundyfridays. Right now, Helix is running their best of the web sale for a limited time, and they are offering the Jennanites an exclusive discount this month. 27% off your mattress purchase, plus 2 free pillows.
Hello everybody and welcome back for another politastic episode of Fundy Fridays. If you're new around these parts, my wife, the Reverend Jen, and I, well, on this channel we talk about things like evangelical Christianity, American conservative politics, pop culture, gay stuff, and the way all those things seem to just bump into each other like a big old gaggle of Republican shills eagerly shoving their way to the front of the line so they can kiss Trump's big orange butt. Now, I'm going to be perfectly square with you all, and I'm going to address something right up front that has been talked about in our little Jennanite community, but I don't think everyone is aware of it yet, and I haven't gotten to speak on it in my own terms, so I'm really wanting to do that now. And that is that I have cancer. I actually was diagnosed with testicular cancer towards the end of October of 2024. And then in early December, after a month of stressing and worrying, I had my right testicle removed in what is referred to as a radical orchiectomy, although please know there is nothing radical about that procedure. And at the time, my treatment team thought that that surgery would handle everything and that I would be cancer-free afterwards. But unfortunately, that's not the way it worked, and it spread to a lymph node in my back. So now I'm being considered for both chemotherapy and surgery. I don't know exactly what they're gonna do yet. I find out soon. If this comes out the day I think it will, I'll actually have found out the day before this comes out what the next few months of my life are gonna look like. And I'm not gonna pretend I'm not a little bit terrified of it all. Now, I know that sounds kind of scary, trust me, but I want to tell you all up front, please do not worry about old King James. I have so many resources at my disposal to help handle this. Because of you all, I have good insurance, and I live pretty close to a world-class teaching hospital where I get to use it too, so that's a huge blessing. I've also got supportive friends and family, and of course, the Reverend has had my back every step of the way. And the Jennanites, good lord, y'all. Every time we've mentioned anything about this, the outpourings of support, survival stories, camaraderie, it has lifted my soul. I really, get a little emotional. I really hope you all know what you've done for me, because I am using the Jennanite energy to power me through this. I feel it like Goku, man. So as far as I'm concerned, cancer picked an awfully stupid opponent when it decided to go after King James.
And I can look in your eyes right now and you know I'm telling the damn truth when I tell you I'm tougher than you.
To be honest, the one I feel the worst for at this point is my left testicle, considering he just lost his lifelong friend. And I think that's kind of sad.
I miss him.
And hey, I'm not going to try and talk about my boys too awful much anymore, but, you know, that's where the cancer went. I have to mention it. But in the meantime, as you might expect, I've been admittedly a bit checked out over the past couple of months mentally and not following the world news quite as closely as I usually do. But, you know, I just hope there wasn't any, like, major geopolitical shift that just took place in the last couple of months or anything, right?
We are now winning in Michigan, Arizona, Nevada, and Alaska, which would result in us carrying at least 315 electoral votes, but we also have won the popular vote. That was great. Very proud of that.
Oh yeah, that. Yes, in the midst of all my personal stuff, Donald Trump managed to get elected for his second term as President of the United States, actually becoming the second president ever to serve non-consecutive terms, behind only Grover Cleveland, who I don't know anything about, actually. And what's more, he won this time a lot more decisively than he did in 2016, taking both the Electoral College and the popular vote in pretty decisive fascism. Fashion! And, as you might expect, he's already started himself down the path of doing a lot of stuff to completely warp and damage our government. And perhaps nowhere do I think that's more apparent than in some of the people he has nominated for his presidential cabinet. Trump has put a ton of names out there for the cabinet in a very short amount of time, kind of echoing what we thought might happen thanks to Project 2025. If you want to know more about that, check out my video covering just that subject. And as it always seems to be with Trump, he's kind of just moving at a pace that makes it really hard to keep up with him. So, as a person who is admittedly kind of out of touch with things going on around me, and who also likes to help other people feel more in control of the politics around them, I figured, what better than for me to do a little review of what we know so far about Donald Trump's cabinet. Now, I'm going to be square with y'all, this is not a comprehensive list, this is not a comprehensive breakdown. I didn't really have time for that, I've had a few other things going on. This is a more overview type of thing. I pulled from some work from a few incredible journalists who compiled all of these picks and have been updating their lists over time. I've put some of them on screen here so that you can see who I read and who I looked into to find out more. And I just started reading biographies and Googling and looking for patterns. And it turned out that I actually saw some pretty stark patterns in these cabinet nominations emerge pretty quickly in that process. So today, I just want to kind of do a quick overview of Trump's cabinet, bearing in mind that most of these folks still have to be approved by the Senate, although chances are he's going to get all of them through, or most of them through at least. And hopefully through these cabinet choices, we can kind of start to see a picture emerge of Trump's agenda, not just for the United States, but for the rest of the world as well. And by the end of this, it's my hope that you'll feel at least somewhat informed regarding Donald Trump's cabinet and what it might tell us about how the next 4 years of our country's life are going to go. I don't necessarily know if I'll say anything that'll help you sleep any better at night, though. Well, actually, I can say one thing that might help you sleep a little better at night, specifically that today's episode of Fundy Fridays is brought to you all by Helix Sleep.
Election results got you down? Our visions of Donald Trump and Project 2025 making you toss and turn? Have no fear, Helix Sleep is here, and they're going to bring you the best night of sleep ever. I've been sleeping on my Helix mattress for about a year now, and I can confidently say it's not only the best bed I've ever slept on, but it's the best night of sleep that I've ever had in my life. See, Helix mattresses are customized to fit your needs, and by taking their super quick and easy sleep quiz, you can find the best mattress for you and your family. If you sleep with a partner, you can also take the sleep quiz together and find something that's the perfect compromise for both of you. All you have to do is answer a few simple questions like your body type, your mattress firmness preference, whether you're a side, stomach, or back sleeper, and most importantly of all, how hot you are. I meant hot more as in your temperature, but I can't help but think that Helix is trying to tell me something. I actually sleep on the Twilight Luxe mattress because I'm a firm side sleeping queen, and I want my mattress to be exactly like me. Helix mattresses come delivered right to your door with free shipping in the United States, and setup was a breeze. I mean, it's so easy that you could potentially have your dog help you, although I wouldn't recommend that. The mattresses come rolled up in a box, they're easy to set up, you just put them on the frame and let them breathe and spread their wings, and soon enough you'll have your own best night's sleep ever. Seriously though, I love my Helix mattress. On my old mattress, I would toss and turn from back pain all night, and that has not been a problem since I've started sleeping on my Helix mattress. It's extremely comfortable, affordable, and it's made with love. In fact, Helix owns their own manufacturing facility, which is entirely free from products containing fiberglass. I mean, who the heck would want to sleep with a mattress filled with fiberglass? I mean, no offense to the fiberglass fans in the audience. Helix also offers a 10-year warranty, amazing customer service, and even a 100-night sleep trial where you can actually test your mattress and return it if need be. That's over 3 months, by the way. Helix Sleep also offers financing options and flexible payment plans. Sounds like a win-win to me. So thanks again to Helix Sleep for sponsoring today's video. You can go to the info box below or the pinned comment for more information, and check out helixsleep.com/Fundy Fridays to get 27% off your mattress purchase plus 2 free pillows as a part of Helix's Best of the Web sale. Running now for a limited time.
All right, back from the advertisement. I've got my C-SPAN and Chill shirt on, by the way. I figured this was right for the occasion. I also have a long sleeve shirt underneath it, both because it's cold in my house and because I'm 35 years old, and back in the day, this was the pinnacle of fashion.
I wear long sleeve shirts under short sleeve shirts under long sleeve shirts.
Anyway, so in order to start us off, I'm actually going to do things a little bit unusually and lead off with an in memoriam, shall we say. Specifically, let's pass on some extremely non-heartfelt sympathy to folks who have already dropped out of the cabinet process. Chad Chronister, nominated for DEA Administrator, but who then lost his nomination because he pissed off the MAGA crowd by actually holding a pastor accountable for holding service during COVID lockdowns. and former Representative Matt Gaetz of Florida, initially nominated for Attorney General of the United States before losing his nomination because he's a disgusting pervert. Any chance I can get to make fun of Matt Gaetz, I'm gonna take it.
Pervert. $4 and see pervert. What do you call it, pervert? It's written on the bill.
Likewise, I want to also take a moment before we jump into the rabble to highlight one position in particular, namely the Secretary of State. Now, for those of you who don't know, the State Department's primary role in the United States government is building and maintaining our partnerships across the world and maintaining the United States' presence on the international stage. Essentially, the State Department is the first line of contact between the United States and the entire rest of the world.
The Secretary of State leads the U.S. Department of State, America's lead foreign affairs agency. As the President's chief diplomatic advisor, the Secretary of State has two major duties. The first duty is to carry out the President's foreign policies. The second duty is to advise the President on all matters related to international relations. After the U.S. President, the Secretary of State is the highest level face of the United States abroad, especially to their foreign counterparts.
And as such, it's a particularly powerful position in the cabinet, traditionally only given to very experienced, very talented, and very effective people who themselves are oftentimes looking to ascend to the presidency at some point in the future. And not to mention that the Secretary of State is fourth in the line of succession to the presidency, and the first person in the line of succession, not including the vice president, that the president gets to name himself. And so, at least at this point, who has Donald Trump chosen to be his Secretary of State?
Nothing has frustrated me more than false choices like the one the president laid out tonight.
Ah, yes, little Marco and his bottle of water.
And he's like this, and we were, I need water, help me, I need water, help. That's what it...
Seriously though, I wanted to stop here and kind of pause for a second because Marco Rubio as the Secretary of State is both hilarious given the fact that he and Donald Trump have spent probably more time going after each other than actually working together.
What does Donald Trump do when things go wrong? He takes to Twitter. I have them right here. Let's read some. You'll have fun. Here's the first one. Lightweight Marco Rubio was working hard last night. This is true. The problem is he is a chalker. And once a chalker, always a choker. I guess that's what he meant to say. He spelled choker C-H-O-K-E-R, chalker.
But also because this pick telegraphs a lot about Trump's international agenda. Because here's the thing you need to know about Marco Rubio more than anything else, in my opinion. Marco Rubio hates China. Seriously, even among the Republican Party, who's already pretty anti-China, we all know that, Marco Rubio is seen as a hawk towards China, promoting aggressive stances and policy positions at basically every turn towards them, and indicating that that's going to be a big part of Trump's agenda too, pushing back against China however they see that.
Everything is a priority, nothing's a priority. And Senator Rubio, your top priority must be the People's Republic of China. Do you agree that the PRC is the biggest threat that we face as the United States?
The Communist Party of China that leads the PRC is the most potent and dangerous near-peer adversary this nation has ever confronted. They have elements that the Soviet Union never possessed. When they write the book about the 21st century, there's going to be some chapters in there about Putin, there's going to be some chapters in there about some of these other places, but the bulk of that book about the 21st century will be not just about China, but about the relationship between China and the United States and what direction it went.
But don't get it twisted, it's not just our relations with China that are likely to suffer under a Marco Rubio State Department either. His track record with Mexico and Latin America, for example, tends to just be him ranting and raving about socialism or drug cartels without any actual mind for how we will work with our important partners to the south. And in terms of his position on Palestine, well, I don't even need to tell you about that because Marco made that pretty clear himself.
Senator Rubio, will you call for ceasefire?
No, I will not.
Gaza?
On the contrary.
Senator Rubio,
are you filming it?
Wait,
so I want you guys to get this. I want them to destroy every element of Hamas they can get their hands on. These people are vicious animals who did horrifying crimes. And I hope you guys post that.
And
that's
what
my
about the
position.
civilians
I
that are
blame
being
Hamas.
killed every day?
Hamas should stop hiding behind civilians, putting civilians in the way. Hamas knew that this was going to lead to this.
So yeah, the nomination of Marco Rubio for Secretary of State, it gives us a pretty clear indicator that our international relations are probably going to suffer over the next 4 years. With hardline policy positions, overly aggressive theatrical negotiations with other countries, and Marco Rubio at the top of the whole pile, spinelessly rubber stamping whatever Donald Trump wants to do, I'm sure. Not off to a good start. So, moving on to the rest of the cabinet, in my research and looking through these articles I mentioned detailing Trump's nominations, I noticed a few patterns starting to emerge. For example, Trump is doing a lot of what I would call betting on the boob tube. And by that I mean picking people that he's likely seen on TV in some capacity, because as we all know by now, TV is how Donald Trump learns everything. For example, there's Carrie Lake, former local news anchor out of Arizona and perpetual loser in several of that state's elections. Trump has nominated Lake to head the Voice of America network, which is actually the country's oldest and largest publicly funded news network. It's also Scott Turner, Trump's nominee for HUD Secretary, and Herschel Walker, his nominee to be the ambassador to the Bahamas, who are both former professional football stars, so they count as TV stars too, I think. And honestly, I'm kind of surprised that Trump didn't also nominate Herschel's son for something at this point too.
Y'all, I'm picking up some shopping right now, and I just drove by the front door and I saw through the glass door this big sign that says, Pride! Happy Pride! Get it out of my face! We can't escape it! We can't escape! Oh no, not the Rainbow Cross one!
There's also Dr. Mehmet Oz, who Trump has nominated to be his cabinet's Medicare-Medicaid administrator, and who most people know from his long-running television show that we'll talk about a bit later on. Likewise, there's Trump's nominee for Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon, who, yes, I assure you I will be covering in a little bit more detail later on. But for now, let's just watch her take a stone cold stunner.
Thank you.
And of course, how can we forget the Fox networks, which Trump has notably in the past been quite infatuated with, and from which he has pulled several nominees for his cabinet, like Transportation Secretary nominee Sean Duffy, a former host on the Fox Business Network who also happened to appear on The Real World Boston back in 1997. Oh, and also he met his wife on The Real World, and also she's a Fox host too.
Now, another one who's gotten married is Sean, right? You've gotten married, haven't you? And just in case you're wondering who Sean got married to, take a look at this.
And that is Rachel.
Rachel's a cool girl. She was very bubbly, very spirited, and I like her right off the bat. She rubbed me the right way.
And that's going to be who's in charge of our highways.
Duffy.
It's also Mike Huckabee, frequent contributor on Fox News, although technically he's actually a host at TBN, but it's kind of the same. Likewise, there are frequent contributors and hosts, including Energy Secretary Chris Wright, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, Surgeon General Dr. Jeanette Neishawat, Ambassador to Chile Brandon Judd, and Ambassador to Greece Kimberly Guilfoyle, both a Fox News contributor and also Donald Trump's longtime daughter-in-law, though from what I hear it seems like that might not be happening anymore, but who knows. But all of that is to say, lots of people just straight up from TV in this cabinet, and that's probably not a good sign because it shows us that Donald Trump has not gotten any better at learning or reading the room or being thoughtful about the world around him, the kinds of things you would want from an American president. But TV personalities weren't the only group of people I saw being disproportionately represented in Trump's cabinet, because we can also see him working hard to benefit his billionaire buddies as part of this process as well. And up front, I'm going to give a dishonorable mention to both Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, who are definitely involved in Trump's cabinet, although their role is very, very strange and obtuse and hard to understand right now. They're supposed to be in charge of government efficiency, whatever the hell they mean by that. Actually, let's be honest, we know exactly what they mean. They mean cutting social programs in favor of tucking a few more dollars into the bank accounts of people like themselves. But I'm not going to get into their role yet because I'm still trying to figure out what they're actually even doing there. But there are other folks on the Trump cabinet too who definitely seem to be, for lack of better phrasing, billionaire friendly. This could include people like Trump's nominee for Administrator of the EPA, Lee Zeldin, formerly a representative from New York with a long track record of voting against both clean air and clean water initiatives, meaning that the EPA is probably going to be relegated to getting out of the way of billionaire oil executives for the next 4 years, if anything. Likewise, there's Trump's nominee for Secretary of the Interior, Doug Burgum, a former governor of North Dakota, a well-known oil drilling state, and a fierce proponent of fossil fuels, including the development of the Dakota Access Pipeline. There's also Scott Bessent, Trump's nominee for Secretary of the Treasury, a hedge fund manager with reportedly over $500 million in personal assets. And I probably don't need to tell you what a person like that is going to want to do with the American Treasury. And of course, there's just the straight-up billionaires that Trump has put onto his cabinet, more than any other president by far. This includes folks like his Commerce Secretary nominee and also his transition chair, Howard Lutnick, the billionaire CEO of an investment firm who reportedly is going to be spearheading Trump's terrible tariff plan. There's also Social Security Administration Commissioner nominee Frank Bisignano, formerly the billionaire CEO at Fiserv, an online banking tech company, who I'm sure just has the best of intentions for America's senior citizens. And of course, there's the aforementioned Linda McMahon, who is a billionaire stemming from her work at Titan Sports and WWE, and as Education Secretary, we can expect to be nothing more than Betsy DeVos 2.0.
So joining us now is someone with firsthand experience, the former Secretary of Education in the first Trump administration, Betsy DeVos. Betsy, welcome back to the program. Good to have you here. What's your reaction to the appointment of Linda McMahon in this post at Education?
Well, I think it's a great appointment. Linda is a proven executive that has a ton of experience. She did a great job at SBA. She has a heart for kids and education. And we all know that the Department of Education is a mess. It has failed in its mission, and she will do a great job in implementing the policies that President Trump has championed, starting with education freedom, tax credit policy around school choice, and cleaning up and clarifying Title IX and this issue of men and women's bathrooms in women's sports.
Seriously, you don't even have to take my word for it. The National Education Association has already voiced their extreme displeasure with this pick, highlighting that Linda McMahon has absolutely no qualifications that would make her a good fit for this role, that she has already pledged to push an extreme agenda of specifically moving money out of public schools to fund voucher programs, and who will likely be just as much of a rubber stamp for Donald Trump as anybody else on his cabinet. Oh, and also just several billionaire ambassadors for some reason, including billionaire real estate investor Thomas Barrack Jr., nominated to be the ambassador to Mexico, billionaire investment firm CEO Ward Stevens, nominated to be the ambassador to Britain, billionaire real estate developer and also Trump's literal in-law Charles Kushner, nominated to be the ambassador to France, and Stephen Witkoff, who has been nominated to be the special envoy to the Middle East. I honestly don't know what that is, and it kind of sounds like an ambassador, so I'm just lumping him in here, mostly because he's a billionaire real estate developer, just like Donald Trump himself. So yeah, Trump clearly wants to use his cabinet to bolster his friendship with billionaires, to enrich the lives of his billionaire friends, and to create somehow an even bigger gap between the American ultra-wealthy and the rest of the country. But don't think that Trump has forgotten whose votes put him into office, because Trump has also used several of his cabinet picks to bolster his base. And I will also put another dishonorable mention on this category in the form of Laura Loomer, who, like Vivek and Elon, is doing something in the Trump administration, although it doesn't seem like anybody knows exactly what beyond having a lot of influence because they have Trump's ear. But anyway, by bolstering the base, what I mean is that Trump has used several of these cabinet picks, at least as far as I can tell, to try and appeal directly to his rabid, aggressive MAGA voter crowd. And I'm sure you good people can figure out what that means. While Trump definitely wants to appeal to American billionaires, he also has to remember the voters that put him in office. Specifically, that MAGA crowd he's been whipping into a frenzy for the past 8 years. And whom can generally only be placated by the most aggressive, vicious right-wing agenda one could possibly imagine. This includes things like straight up racism, particularly towards Mexicans and Muslims. It also means pushing the quote-unquote biased liberal fake news agenda, allowing for American journalists to be censored and silenced at his will. Also just, oh god, so much war hawking. And also vaccine denialism. For example, there's his nominee for Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem. Now, to be fair, she is the current governor of South Dakota, but truthfully, her most prominent qualification for this role in particular, at least as far as I could tell, seems to be her impeccable aim with a firearm, specifically when she's pointing it at a defenseless animal. Seriously though, folks, Noem has spent far more time denying COVID safety measures for South Dakotans, arguing with her state's native tribes, and strong-arming government officials into giving her daughter a real estate license than she ever has anything to do with Homeland Security. But she is well known for her very Trump-friendly feelings about the U.S. border with Mexico, which in the eyes of the MAGA crowd makes her an expert on such matters, even though she's the governor of a state more than 1,000 miles from said border.
Hi, I'm Governor Kristi Noem. I recently announced that South Dakota is sending up to 50 National Guard troops to our southern border. They'll help Texas law enforcement fight the effects of the border crisis. And this crisis is a matter of national security. Texans are literally caught in the crossfire, and it's getting worse because of the Biden administration's inaction.
She doesn't even go here.
Do you even go to this school? No, I just have a lot of feelings.
Likewise, there's Voice of America director nominee Kari Lake that we mentioned earlier, who specifically is a turncoat journalist who sold out her entire profession for brownie points from Donald Trump.
22 years ago, Fox 10 hired me and paired me up with John Hook to bring you the news every night. Sadly, journalism has changed a lot since I first stepped into a newsroom, and I'll be honest, I don't like the direction it's going. The media needs more balance in coverage and a wider range of viewpoints represented in every newsroom, at every level, and in each position. In the past few years, I haven't felt proud to be a member of the media. I'm sure there are other journalists out there who feel the same way. I found myself reading news copy that I didn't believe was fully truthful or only told part of the story. And I began to feel that I was contributing to the fear and division in this country by continuing on in this profession. It's been a serious struggle for me, and I no longer want to do this job anymore. So I've decided the time is right to do something else, and I'm leaving Fox 10.
And now I think you can see why he put her in that Voice of America position. Because Kari Lake is awful good at pushing the agenda that the media is biased against conservatives. Don't get it twisted though, she's just as racist as Kristi Noem, having both touted the extremely racist Great Replacement theory.
In every state around the country, you're seeing Democrats fight tooth and nail any piece of legislation which will prevent illegals from voting, which will solidify and codify that already existent law. What they want, Maria, we're not going to see all these people pouring across the border showing up at polling places. What they want is to have a line in the voters' rolls so that somebody can vote for that person. And that's why they're asking them to register to vote when they get set up for Medicare and Medicaid, because they're giving them all of these services. Wow. They're asking them to sign up to vote. Then they have a line in the voter roll, and somebody will vote under that name.
And also accusing former Senate opponent Ruben Gallego's parents of being cartel traffickers or something without a shred of evidence to back it up.
He's actually, I want to confront the cartels. He is controlled by the cartels. His own father was a Colombian drug trafficker, and so he's got links to the cartel, and that is very concerning, and it should be concerning for everybody out there.
There's also border czar Tom Homan, a former ICE director who has already expressed a willingness to straight up arrest American mayors who push back against his plan to end sanctuary cities.
Well, look, me and the Denver mayor, we agree on one thing. He's willing to go to jail. I'm willing to put him in jail. Because there's a statute, it's Title 8 United States Code 1324 III, and what it says is, it's a felony if you knowingly harbor and conceal an illegal alien from immigration authorities. It's also a felony to impede a federal law enforcement officer. So if we don't want to help, that's fine. He can get the hell out of the way. But we're going to go do the job. President Trump has a mandate for American people.
There's also Trump's nominee to be the ambassador to Chile, Brandon Judd, who is a former head of the Border Patrol Union.
All of these countries understand what our policies are. They know how they can exploit our policies. They know that right now is the time that they can get people into the country illegally, and they can sit and wait. Once people are here illegally, they're never leaving this country. ICE doesn't have the resources to go after every single person. You know, we've only got a few thousand ICE agents throughout the entire United States. So it's again, it's dereliction of duty.
We can also look to his nominee for Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee. Mike Huckabee, I'm sure most of you are aware of by now, is a TBN host, former governor of Arkansas, and a well-known hyper-evangelical with a particularly weird track record of supporting the Duggars of all people.
Pam, let me tell you something. You have no idea what you're talking about. You don't know that family, and I do. You don't know what those parents did and how they worked to try to take care of their entire family.
More importantly, though, Mike Huckabee is violently anti-Palestinian.
Basically, I mean, there really is no such thing as, and I have to be careful in saying this because people will really get upset, there's really no such thing as a Palestinian. There's not. Arabs and Persians, you don't have, you know, and there's such complexity within that. There's really no such thing. That's been a political tool to try to force land away from Israel.
More broadly, though, we can see some of the MAGA crowd's anti-intellectualism stance in Trump's nominee for Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth.
Let me be very blunt. Stop supporting your alma mater. Stop now. Stop sending money and stop sending your kids. This is a start, but crusading means taking the next step. Send your diplomas back.
He said it.
Mail them back. Return to sender. Thank you for the education, in quotes, but I can no longer support your leftist cause.
So how are you doing this? Are you burning it? Are you sending it? You're going to send it?
I'm going to send it back.
Okay,
I got an envelope
right.
over here.
Okay.
There you go. It just comes right out. Just a piece of parchment. Pro-life, anti-communist. And not anymore in the Democrat Party. And then I think we finished it off by saying return to sender.
Hegseth, for reference, spent a few years in the military before becoming a conservative pundit and TV host, and otherwise seems to have absolutely no qualifications whatsoever to be Secretary of Defense. And not to mention the fact that he's facing several lawsuits tied to sexual harassment and erratic behavior during his time at Fox News.
Mr. Hegseth, I do not believe that you are qualified to meet the overwhelming demands of this job. We must acknowledge the concerning public reports against you. A variety of sources, including your own writings, implicate you with disregarding the laws of war, financial mismanagement, racist and sexist remarks about men and women in uniform, alcohol abuse, sexual assault, sexual harassment, and other troubling issues. I have reviewed many of these allegations and find them extremely alarming. Indeed, the totality of your own writings and alleged conduct would disqualify any service member from holding any leadership position in the military, much less being confirmed as the Secretary of Defense.
And of course, we know that the MAGA crowd in recent years has also developed a pretty strong penchant for anti-vaccine sentiments, which likely led to Trump's nomination of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for Secretary of Health and Human Services.
Today I nominated him for, I guess, if you like health and if you like people that live a long time, it's the most important position, RFK Jr. Bobby?
For reference, RFK Jr. is an environmental lawyer and Nepo baby who sounds like he gargles gravel and has not a hint of real experience in either health or human services.
If confirmed, Kennedy would oversee one of the biggest departments in the government, which includes the CDC, the FDA, and the Affordable Care Act. Kennedy, who is not a doctor and has no medical training, has endorsed debunked conspiracy theories about vaccines. He vows to shake things up.
In some categories of workers, there are entire departments, like the nutrition departments at FDA, that have to go, that are not doing their job. They're not protecting our kids.
His nomination has drawn criticism from a host of public health leaders.
He comes not with a query, not with suggesting that we should look at two different points of view or look at things. He's made a determination with no scientific background. That's very dangerous in an agency where people take the recommendations of the experts and try to follow them to keep themselves and their families safe and secure.
And even beyond the woefully underqualified and deeply concerning RFK Jr. is just a parade of absolutely terrible doctors. This includes folks like FDA Commissioner nominee Dr. Martin Makary, a well-known opponent of vaccine and mask mandates. Likewise, there's the aforementioned Medicare/Medicaid Administrator nominee, Dr. Mehmet Oz, who pushed for the use of hydroxychloroquine during COVID despite consistent evidence that it didn't work to treat the disease, and who is perhaps best known for his well-documented history of pushing medical and weight loss scams on his talk show.
Bust your fat forever.
You're hearing it here first.
5 newest, fastest fat busters.
In many ways, it's the Holy Grail. They change the appetite.
Dr. Oz's secret formula to drop 3 pounds in just 3 days. And the revolutionary treatment to blast your fat instantly.
It melts a layer of fat through the skin.
It's painless and permanent.
There's also CDC Director Dr. Dave Weldon, who has also in the past pushed the vaccine autism link, and National Institute of Health Director nominee Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, who has previously fought COVID lockdowns, and Trump's nominee for Surgeon General Dr. Janet Neishawat, who appears to initially have been supportive of vaccines and lockdowns, who at least in my opinion seems to have taken a hard turn towards the right wing on these policy positions somewhere around the beginning of 2022.
So tell us about these side effects that people are experiencing.
So, Lawrence, the most common side effects, and only about 40 to 50% of people will experience them, are pain at the site of injection. So if you get it in your left arm, it'll be sore maybe for about a day or two. Sometimes some people will develop a fever. You can also get a headache. I had a little bit of a headache, a little bit of fatigue, a little bit of body aches. But the good news is, Lawrence, that it's short-lived. It only lasts maybe about a day or two. And if you take a little acetaminophen, a little Tylenol, or even a little Motrin, that can help with your symptoms. And you got to remember the benefits of the vaccine greatly outweigh these short-lived side effects that are easily treatable and can protect you, keep you out of the hospital, keep you off a ventilator, and keep you from dying. When we lock down, when we cancel sporting events, when we close down schools, when we shut down Broadway, it has such a massive social and economic disruption that it really puts everything out of whack, and we really need to be focused on the correct data, the correct numbers, so we are appropriately acting accordingly and not putting people out of jobs and that sort of thing.
So yeah, as we can see, Trump is giving the MAGA voter base basically everything they could have ever asked for when it comes to his cabinet. And yet, there was still a category of folks I saw being represented in said Trump cabinet. Specifically, nominees who will potentially allow Trump to belie the brutality of his regime. And in my opinion, this is the most nefarious group of Trump's picks. Because in my opinion, these are folks whose nominations are based primarily on their deceptively apolitical nature, or even people with potentially more of a centrist lean nominated specifically to try and appease Trump's opposition. My dishonorable mention here would be none other than Vice President J.D. Vance, who I'm also not going to go into detail on today because I've already done that. Feel free to check out that episode. It's fascinating. But also because I think we all have kind of gotten exposed a fair bit to J.D. Vance now, and we see what they're trying to do with him. Vance is supposed to be the moderating force behind Trump, right? He's the calm one, the quiet one, the measured voice in the room.
I never supported a national ban. I did when I was running for Senate in 2022 talk about setting some minimum national standard. For example, we have a partial birth abortion ban in place in this country at the federal level. I don't think anybody's trying to get rid of that, or at least I hope not. We've got to do a better job at winning back people's trust. So many young women would love to have families. So many young women also see an unplanned pregnancy as something that's going to destroy their livelihood, destroy their education, destroy their relationships. And we have got to earn people's trust back. And that's why Donald Trump and I are committed to pursuing pro-family policies, making child care more accessible, making fertility treatments more accessible, because we've got to do a better job at that. And that's what real leadership is.
He stands in stark contrast to Trump's general demeanor of bombastic insanity.
Will you restrict the availability of abortion pills when you're in office?
I'll probably stay with exactly what I've been saying for the last 2 years, and the answer is no.
You commit to that?
Well, I commit. I mean, do things change? I think they change. I hate to go on shows like Joe Biden. I'm not going to give my son a pardon. I will not, under any circumstances, give him a pardon. I watched this, and I always knew he was going to give him a pardon, and I don't like putting myself in a position like that. So things do change.
And yet, I think we all know, and you can learn pretty clearly through my other video, that is not how he's going to work. J.D. Vance does not have the spine to stand up to Donald Trump. He is going to rubber stamp as much, if not more, than anybody else in that cabinet. But some of the folks in this category that you may not be familiar with are folks like Trump's nominee for Secretary of the Army, Daniel Driscoll. For reference, Driscoll is a former advisor to J.D. Vance, with at least enough of a military background to kind of justify his placement into this role. Likewise, and like Kari Lake, as we discussed before, he has also at least run for elected office, although he has never won anything, and somehow managed to lose to Madison Cawthorn of all people. Now, most of what I found on Daniel Driscoll just kind of highlighted that a local North Carolina boy was getting nominated for Secretary of the Army.
Elect Donald Trump has chosen a North Carolina native for Secretary of the Army. Investment banker and Army veteran Daniel Driscoll is from Boone. Driscoll ran to represent North Carolina's 11th district back in 2020, but lost to Madison Cawthorn. He also served as a senior advisor for J.D. Vance. The Senate still needs to confirm Driscoll for that role.
And otherwise, he comes across relatively neutral in his political positions, at least until you dig into his 2020 House of Representatives campaign, where we can see that this guy is another violent, run-of-the-mill Republican with all of the same policy positions we know and hate.
Combat veteran Dan Driscoll, pro-gun, pro-life, pro-wall. Dan Driscoll, a strong conservative Republican who served our country in uniform. Conservatives need fighters. President Trump needs Dan Driscoll in Congress.
I'm Dan Driscoll, and I approve this message.
Likewise is aforementioned former NFL player and representative from Texas, Scott Turner, who Trump has nominated for Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. Turner, like Driscoll, has some professional experience that would at least make it seem like he's a good fit for this role. For example, he was put into the role of White House Opportunity and Revitalization Council Executive Director by Trump in 2019. And I know, that position is a mouthful, it was hard to say. But overall, looking into it, it seems kind of like one of those do-nothing resume builder positions that are given out to rising stars of whichever party's in power at the time.
As many of you know, Opportunity Zones were created by the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act to spur investment in our most vulnerable communities. These zones are an uplifting, transformational vehicle through which investors can use their planned capital expenditures as a force for positive change, bringing economic growth and opportunities to distressed areas.
Except for the fact that the program was widely used by the wealthiest Americans as a way of dodging capital gains taxes, because of course it was.
President Trump's 2017 tax plan created Opportunity Zones, a program of tax incentives to encourage investment in low-income communities. But as Paul Solman reports, that program has not necessarily spurred economic growth.
David Wessel has written a whole book about Opportunity Zones, or OZs. Only the rich can play, since only if you're rich do you have an asset worth enough to invest with or pay taxes on if you sell it.
You sell that asset and you get to defer capital gains taxes on that initial sale and get a discount on the capital gains tax. Then you take those profits and put them into an Opportunity Zone fund, hold that for 10 years, and you don't have to pay any capital gains whatsoever.
So the proverbial tax break for the rich. But if they're investing in a needy neighborhood, what's not to like? In fact, says Wessel,
there are 8,764 Opportunity Zones across the country. In 2019, 84% of the Opportunity Zones got no money at all, and half the money went to the best off 1% of zones.
Tens of billions invested so far. This project got about $1 million.
This is roughly the price of one condo in the Ritz-Carlton complex in downtown Portland.
And that is also an Opportunity Zone project.
Yes.
There's also Assistant Attorney General Gail Slater. Slater has specifically been charged with overseeing the Trump administration's antitrust policy. Now, from what I can tell, Slater has given basically no interviews in her life, and I could not find a single taped word from her anywhere, which is why all the info I have comes third hand. But from what I found, she seems to be aligned with the J.D. Vance-inspired hatred of big tech, with a goal of breaking up tech monopolies.
And I do wonder, in what will be come January, a Republican-controlled Congress in both chambers and White House, what that bipartisan path actually looks like.
I think what you've seen in this area of antitrust, you've seen some broad bipartisan agreement on a number of these cases, right? For instance, the Google case started under the Trump administration, the first Trump administration, as did the Facebook case that was at the FTC. Google was at the Justice Department. Then it proceeded through the Biden administration. Biden administration also brought some major cases, for instance, against Ticketmaster and other companies. And so you've seen a more aggressive antitrust enforcement over the last few years. Now you have new appointees going in place, and at least one of them I have heard, the belief is over at the Justice Department with some former Democratic antitrust enforcers that she knows what she's doing. I'm looking forward to meeting with her, Gail Slater, and I'm hoping that we will continue those cases.
Which may not be wholly unreasonable, but also has roots in Donald Trump's well-established, long-running irritation with being fact-checked online. Oh, and also, Slater is a former VP at Roku, of all places, which, given the fact that they still can't work out their problems with Crackle, I worry about her ability to negotiate. I mean, after all, how else am I going to watch Joe Dirt 2? There's also Trump's nominee to be the administrator of NASA, billionaire Jared Isaacman. Isaacman, even more than the other folks we've talked about, is notably apolitical in his public profile and reportedly has donated much more money to Democrats than Republicans in the past. Generally speaking, most of this guy's presentation online presents him as a space nerd, which would make him seem like a good choice for NASA administrator from an outsider perspective at least. And yet we must also acknowledge that Isaacman is a well-known associate of Elon Musk, and SpaceX in particular, who himself took the first ever privately funded spacewalk in American history through a partnership with SpaceX, and who I suspect might be overly friendly to private space exploration interests like Musk in the future. And lastly among this category is Trump's nominee for a position that personally is very near and dear to my heart, the Secretary of Labor. Former representative from Oregon, Lori Chavez DeRemer. And to be honest, from everything I could find, Chavez DeRemer comes across as truly a more traditionally mainstream Republican. Seriously, she even brags about bipartisanship in Trump's America. And likewise, Chavez DeRemer also does seem to have a good reputation working with unions. So while one could easily be fooled into thinking, hey, maybe labor relations could accidentally improve under this nominee, I wouldn't get your hopes up. Because the thing is, Chavez DeRemer still comes with most of the traditional modern Republican baggage one would expect. And while positions like those may not necessarily play very much into her role as Secretary of Labor, they still give us some insight into the rubber stamp mentality we can expect to see. And so now, you may be asking yourself, what do we do with all of this information? And well, I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. I suppose we can say that having gone over all of these cabinet nominees, I think we can comfortably say that some pretty consistent themes for the Trump administration have started to emerge. Starting with the complete lack of challenge to Donald Trump himself. As we've seen, there are lots of ways to get into the Trump regime, but there is no entry into said regime without a complete deference to Donald Trump's worldview. None of these people will ever truly stand up to Donald Trump, and if they do, they're just going to be ousted. And likewise, transcending even the categories I've already listed is a fourth category of Trump nominee. Namely, folks with some kind of track record helping Donald Trump dodge consequences. Usually either in the form of helping him deny the 2020 election results, or providing him with some sort of assistance in the many lawsuits he faced stemming from his behavior in his first term. And most notable / most deeply concerning among this bunch is the person he chose to replace Matt Gaetz' nomination for Attorney General, Pam Bondi. Now, for reference, Pam Bondi is a former attorney general from Florida, which in and of itself is already kind of weird given the fact that Trump nominated specifically 2 people from Florida for attorney general and seems to do some of his most shady dealings in the state. But likewise, Bondi served not only on Trump's opioid and drug abuse commission, she was also a prominent member of the defense team he fielded during his first impeachment trial.
You know, impeaching a president is one of the most monumentous things you can do in our country. And the way this got started, our founding fathers have never, ever anticipated that this would happen the way it did. No one could. It would happen without a full vote of the House of Representatives, the way it started in the House, and so on.
And make no mistake about it, Pam Bondi's loyalties lie with conservatives. And in my opinion, at least, she has given us plenty of reason to believe that her Justice Department will be biased, shall we say, towards certain ideologies.
This lawlessness must stop right here, right now. Donald Trump will stop it. Lock her up, I love that. Stay with me.
But much more broadly, the list of folks who either have helped Trump in a lawsuit or assisted him in pushing the 2020 electoral fraud narrative is just ridiculously massive, including some folks we already talked about, like Voice of America director nominee Kari Lake and EPA administrator nominee Lee Zeldin, but also including a slew of folks I just don't have the time to dig into deeply to today. People like UN Ambassador Elise Stefanik, VA Secretary Doug Collins, Small Business Administrator Kelly Loeffler, Assistant Attorney General nominee Harmeet Dillon, Counselor to the President Alina Habba, Solicitor General D. John Sauer, and White House Staff Secretary Will Scharf. And again, all of these people have direct ties to either Trump's attempts to overturn the 2020 election or serving in his defense across his myriad of lawsuits. And see, those are just the folks with direct ties to those efforts, because we know full well that everybody else he's nominated for the cabinet will share those views. And in essence, meaning that Donald Trump has nominated for his cabinet, to paraphrase wrestling legend CM Punk, a shameless parade of yes men. But allowing Donald Trump to skirt the law so aggressively isn't the only problem we can expect to see from Trump's cabinet. For one, this cabinet seems quite enamored with the idea of state-sanctioned violence, particularly when it's tinged with racism. As such, we can expect them to hold up and pump billions of dollars into our military-industrial complex. And speaking of industrial complexes, the prison industrial complex and all of that legalized slavery it allows for in this country, well, I'm sure they're going to be well protected by all of those billionaires. And of course, we know that the MAGA crowd has a particular fondness for American police violence, especially if it's perpetrated against minority citizens. So don't expect that to get any better anytime soon either. Likewise, I suspect we'll see deportations in this country increase in both their frequency and brutality, alongside a hardline shift towards anti-immigration policy, I suspect. After all, Donald Trump's victory clearly showed us a change in the American zeitgeist, and changes in the zeitgeist lead to changes in broader attitudes, which in turn leads to legislation. But more broadly, I also suspect that we're going to see, for lack of better phrasing, a pretty significant degree of social regression in the country over the next 4 years. Yes, there is a culture war, and right now, the Republicans are winning, tragically. That doesn't mean they're correct in their views, it just means that their views are more popular. I also think that we're going to see a significant weakening of the protections afforded to journalists and the journalistic profession in this country over the next few years. I mean, the attacks on the free press, even among his own cabinet, are obvious and signal to us that this is going to be a broader policy position of the Trump regime. Censorship, misinformation, the banning of TikTok, for God's sake, because we all know the only reason they're banning it is because TikTok is surveilling us the way they want to surveil us. Likewise, we're seeing big companies bend immediately to Trump all over the place, with tons of them donating to his inauguration efforts, settling very unreasonable lawsuits despite the fact that they have perfectly good cases against Trump, at least in my opinion, And I suspect that we are just about to see a tragic overall weakening of the American free press. And perhaps most broadly, I think we're just going to see a terrible, irritating return of American egoism, fueled primarily by Donald Trump himself. I mean, good Lord, the man is already trying to rename the Gulf of Mexico.
And we're going to be announcing at a future date pretty soon. We're going to change, because we do most of the work there and it's ours. We're going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, which has a beautiful ring that covers a lot of territory. The Gulf of America, what a beautiful name.
But seriously, a guy like that, he's not going to stop at just renaming a gulf. And I also think that this is going to lead to a bigger focus on the old ideas of American individualism. And I tragically think that's going to translate to weakening of our social safety net. After all, we know that the first thing Republicans always target with budget cuts is social services, the kinds of social services that benefit our most vulnerable citizens, and instead are going to replace them with nothing, or replace them with privatized options that either don't work or don't care about anything except profit. And truly, I think they're going to try and convince all of us that this is normal. Everything I've seen in Trump's orbit up to this point tells me that they're going to try and convince all of us that this guy is a normal, functional president, when clearly he is anything but. So, you might be asking yourself at this point, what do we do with all of this information? And truth be told, I don't know. We are in unprecedented times. Things are different and worse in many regards than they've ever been from a legislative and governmental standpoint. But I can think of some things that I really do think will help. For one, on a philosophical level, don't give up your humanity or your intelligence. Like I said, a lot of people, a lot of companies, a lot of government officials, a lot of social forces are gonna try and convince you that Donald Trump is a normal president doing normal things with his role. And he's not. He is a wannabe dictator. He is someone who wants absolute power and will take the steps that he needs to get it. And likewise, he's surrounded himself with all of the glad-handing yes men he needs to accomplish it. So when people tell you it's not happening, don't believe them. And in turn, call out the bullshit. Plain and simple. Name and shame these folks. Bad elected representatives. Bad cabinet picks. Donald Trump himself. I don't care. If they do something stupid or violent or harmful or regressive or targeting vulnerable populations, call it out. Call it out to as many people as you can. Call it out to that one really chatty clerk that seems to be at every grocery store. I don't care. Just call it out, and call it out by name. Stick up for America's most vulnerable. We have to remember, Trump's regime is likely not going to be good for most Americans, but that doesn't mean it's going to target all of us equally. Right now, some folks are going to just need to be taken care of and guarded more than others. White guys like me, that's not who they're going to go after. They're going to target reproductive rights. They're going to target trans people. They're going to target the American disabled community. They're going to target the American elderly. And they're going to target immigrants too. And we need to keep people like that in the forefront of our minds moving forward. And of course, there is the stuff you always hear, and I don't want to be a broken record, but things like voting. Go vote. Run and vote. Anything you can vote in it. Make your voice heard. Go to the town halls in your local area if you have the time and have something to say. And I can tell you, you may not have the time, but you certainly have something to say. And of course, protesting, volunteering, community organization, and activism. Beautiful, wonderful things that can help slow down a tyrannical regime like the one we see taking hold in our government right now. And also, and this may be my most important warning of all, keep yourself out of the pipelines. Because the thing is, as I said, people are going to try and convince you that this is normal. And part of that is taking you down the pipelines of terrible beliefs. right-wing pipelines, tradwife pipelines, that type of stuff. Jen and I both have gotten deeply conservative, unironic stuff on all of our social media, despite never, ever, ever believing in or wanting to see that stuff ever. And it's because somebody's trying to change our minds. And I bet they're doing it to you too. So keep an eye out on your social media. I know TikTok's probably going to be banned, but whatever you go to after that, keep an eye out for the messages that platform is trying to tell you. I mean, after all, we can already see Mark Zuckerberg taking himself down the pipeline, so why wouldn't he want to take you down there with him? And the thing is, we are all susceptible to this stuff. Meta has removed fact-checking from all of its platforms. Most American social media is more conservative than it's ever been. And the more we scroll and engage, the more opportunities that people like Trump and his cabinet nominees get to influence your brain. It is my opinion, at least, that right now the world wants to turn a lot of us into conservatives, and it's our job to resist. They're gonna try and turn Trump into a hero. They're gonna try and make you think he's a hero. Do not believe it. He is an egomaniacal multimillionaire who will do anything to gain power, save for benefiting the American public at large. But just remember, none of this is normal. None of this is okay. No matter how popular it is, no matter how many people voted for it, these ideas are wrong, and you are not crazy for thinking that they are wrong. Really, though, I don't want to leave people here with a false sense of hope, and I know this is maybe a little sadder than a lot of my episodes end, but these are really dark times in the United States. And there is a big, exhausting fight ahead for all of us on the horizon. But we have each other, and they can never take that away unless we let them. So give back to your community. Get politically involved. Take pride in being politically involved. Take pride in being informed and staying informed and updating your knowledge as life moves and things change. And while I'm not advocating for anything in particular or anything crazy, don't be afraid to start a bit of a ruckus too. If you've got a loud voice and a lot of friends, and a community that really needs to hear some progressive counter-arguments, get out there and be the one to shout them. But anyway, I'll be honest, I don't really know how to end this video. Y'all want to watch Linda McMahon take another Stone Cold Stunner? Thought you would.
Thank you.
Oh my God! Anyway, love you all so much. Take care and good night. All right. Another one in the books, my first post-cancer diagnosis episode. I swear I'm not going to talk about it all the time, but it is kind of the biggest thing in my world right now. I'm going to keep this outro brief because I got dinner to make. Thank you all so much for taking the time to watch our videos, for sticking with us into the now 6th year, I think, of Fundy Fridays operation. Good Lord. I sincerely hope that you stick with us through the next 4 years, too. I'm very curious to see what it's like operating Fundy Fridays in a Trump presidency. And to that end, if you like what we do here, please consider signing up for our Patreon. It's actually really cool. You get access to our awesome Discord. We've got over 5,000 members in there chatting away about all kinds of cool social, political, religious discourse. Some of the smartest and most insightful people you'll ever meet are in our Discord, truly. Likewise, you also get access to our weekly watch parties. We watch all kinds of fun stuff in there, Sister Wives, the Left Behind movies, and we make jokes and talk crap about it all. It rules, seriously. Those Mondays are the highlight of my week, and I hope they become the highlight of your week too. You also get some bonus content, bonus interviews, episodes, behind the scenes stuff. It's all really cool, and what's best, you can also get all this for as low as $1. We have YouTube memberships and Patreon memberships at $1 or $3. They do the same thing, it just depends on what you want to give. Because we know times are tough and people can't always support their favorite YouTuber. But if you've got some coin burning a hole in your pocket and you like what we do, that's the best way to help us out. And it's super cheap and you get a lot of stuff for it too. But if joining groups isn't your thing, you can also just buy some merchandise from fundyfridays.shop. We have t-shirts, we have posters, we have all kinds of cool stuff. Take a look. And in fact, you can find out more at fundyfridays.net, our official website. fundyfridays.com is unfortunately still taken, although we're working on that. And otherwise, if you don't have any coin to give, that's fine. We love your viewership. It's all we'll ever ask for, and we hope we can just keep entertaining and educating you for as long as they let us do this. And also, just real quick, I want to thank the Gennonites one more time for all of your support. as I've been going through this. I'm not going to beleaguer it too much because my camera battery's dying and I'm about to cry, but you all helped me get through the worst part of this cancer diagnosis so far. So thank you. Thank you for everything. In the meantime, thank you so much. I love you forever. Good night.